like to call the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order. The June 7th Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, a nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Please call the roll.
Chair Badla and Commissioner Anderson have excused absences. Barbaza. Here. Burton.
Here.
Murray.
Here.
Smithwick Ailey. Here. Topfest.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Are there any objections to approving the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Approval of the minutes. Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes of May 3rd, 2023. Are there any changes to the minutes? Are there any objections to approving the minutes? Hearing none, the minutes for the regular Planning and Zoning meeting of May 3rd, 2023 are approved. Presentations with prior notice, none. And public hearings, we have item A, resolution PZ 2023-012, granting approval of a conditional use permit for a single-family residential dwelling within the commercial district at Heath subdivision number 3, lot 1, excluding that portion as per WD 369 at 134. May I have a motion to approve, please?
I move to approve resolution PZ 2023-012, granting approval of a conditional use permit for a single family residential dwelling within the commercial district at Heath sub number 3, lot 1, excluding that portion as per WD 369 at 134.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Can we have a staff report, please?
The staff report can be found on page 4 of the printed packet. Noah Shield submitted a conditional use permit application to the city for the development of a residential dwelling at 42871 Sterling Highway. The applicant is the owner of the record for the 11.13 acre property. It's parcel number 059-32042. The zoning is commercial. Adjacent lands to the north, east, and west are also zoned commercial and are largely undeveloped. Lands to the east are split zoned rural residential and commercial, and the use on those lands is a recreational lodging. The property is accessed off the Sterling Highway of an existing 18-foot shared driveway. The proposed single-family dwelling requires 2 parking spaces per unit type according to Soldotna Municipal Code 1710-330. Parking is not depicted on the site plan, but the driveway is long enough to provide the required parking. The existing driveway provides the owner's access to the Sterling Highway, and that highway is maintained by DOT. Due to the length of the driveway and the sloping topography, it is staff's recommendation that the commission not require paving. And I'll get to that a little bit more in depth later when we do the 8 uses of the conditional use permit. Street right-of-way landscaping is required. The street right-of-way landscaping softens the impact of land uses along street rights-of-way, but does not obscure land uses from site. The minimum average planting side width shall be 10 feet, with the minimum width at any point not less than 6 feet. Landscape trees are required 15 feet on center. The applicant intends to utilize the native vegetation that already exists along the Sterling Highway in order to meet the landscaping requirement. The commercial zoning district is intended to provide an area which is convenient, visibly pleasing, contributes to the economic welfare of the community, and allows a wide range of general business and other compatible uses. Single-family dwellings are a conditional use in the commercial district, and the proposed residential dwelling meets the minimum standards of the zoning district for the lot size, lot width, yard setbacks, and maximum lot coverage in building height. Within the municipal code, there are certain specifications within the commercial district if there is a residential dwelling. And I'll get to that a little bit more in depth too once we go over the conditional use part. So that begins right now. So on page 9 of the printed packet within conditional uses. So like I stated before, residential dwellings are listed as a conditional use in the commercial zoning district, which means that following a public hearing, they may be approved by the commission if the body finds that in addition to meeting the general standards of the code, the use is in harmony with the surrounding neighborhood and the comprehensive plan. These 8 specific standards that we'll go through must be met before a conditional use permit may be granted. So the first standard is the proposed development satisfies the specific standards associated with that conditional use listed in the code, if any. Staff finds that this standard is partially met. Soldotna Municipal Code 1710-265C lists specific standards for maximum lot coverage, which is 30%, minimum yard setbacks, which is the front yard is 20 feet, rear yard 20 feet, and side yard 10 feet. And for parking and landscaping when residential dwellings are constructed in the commercial zoning district. The submitted site plan shows that the lot coverage and setbacks will be satisfied. The applicant also indicated that the existing vegetation along the Sterling Highway will be preserved and maintained, satisfying that landscaping requirement of the code. The submitted site plan does not show paving of the driveway. Paving is required per 1710-330 F1. As stated above, staff recommends that the commission waive the parking requirement for this driveway. And then for standard number 2, the use is in harmony with the comprehensive plan and surrounding land uses. Staff finds that this standard is met. The future land use map identifies that this area is as mixed use, and that map is in our Soldotna Envision 2030. Mixed use in our planning document is intended to create a variety of uses to allow for a vibrant mix of development within the district. A diversity of compatible land uses is encouraged. Typically, development would include a mixture of 2 or more uses such as residential, office, retail service, or recreational. The surrounding land uses consist of cabins such as recreational lodging, a real estate office, and a single-family residential dwelling. Currently, the proposed development is in harmony with the surrounding land uses. Staff believes that the proposed residential dwelling is in harmony with the comprehensive plan and the surrounding land uses. The third standard is that the use meets the general standards of the zoning code and the intent of the zoning district in which it is located. We find that the standard is met. The proposed use meets all of the zoning standards for the commercial district and is consistent with the intent of the zoning district, which is to provide an area which is convenient, visually pleasing, contributes to the economic welfare of the community, and allows a wide range of general business and other compatible uses. Staff believes that the residential dwelling meets the general standards of the zoning code. Fourth standard, the use shall be so located and arranged on site to avoid significant noise, glare, odor, or other nuisances and dangers. Staff finds that this standard is met. We're not aware of any noise, glare, or odor that would be generated. Standard 5, the proposed development shall not significantly impair the value of the adjoining properties. Staff finds that this standard is met. The proposed development is similar to neighboring residential uses, and staff is not aware of any evidence that would suggest that the development of a residential dwelling would impair adjoining property values. Standard 6, the size and scale of the use is such that will be adequately served by existing public services and facilities. We found that this standard is also met. This property is not served by city water or sewer. The property is located in Central Emergency Services Response Area and is served by the Soldotna Police Department. 7th standard, granting of the conditional use shall not be harmful to public safety, health, or welfare. We find this standard is met. We do not believe that the granting of this conditional use permit will be harmful to public safety, health, or welfare. And finally, the 8th is that the property where the development is to occur is current in payments owed to the city, including property taxes, sales tax, utility billing, and assessments. And we have found that this standard is met. The finance department reported that there are no outstanding obligations owed to the city. So staff has determined that this project meets or partially meets the general standards for development in the commercial zoning district and recommends approval of the site plan for development of the single family residential dwelling based on the following conditions: to provide that the existing natural vegetation within the street right-of-way landscape area remains and is maintained with no additional right-of-way landscaping required, and no development shall occur within 50 feet of Soldotna Creek without required permits. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. The public comment period is now open. Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak on this item? Not seeing any in the room. Are there any on Zoom? Okay. With no one else wishing to speak, the public comment period is now closed. Are there any commission comments or questions for staff?
On this, in the summary, it says recommending approval of the site plan for a development of a parking lot. Is that
I think that was my error and a typo.
in the summary of the staff determination? Where's, let me just see, resolution was the first part.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Okay. Okay, yeah. I don't know where.
I was working on two of
Yeah,
these at the exact
it's
same
fine.
time, and I'm so
Yeah, no.
sorry. This
Oh, no,
is
that's
my
totally
fault.
fine.
You'll
It's
see the
just-
parking lot next time.
Where's the correlating, where's the statement in here, just for double check?
Typically on
The
the last
residential.
page of the
I just didn't see the
resolution,
correlating, just to,
it says whereas this approval is subject to the following conditions.
like, driveway, okay. Okay.
There any other commission comments? Yes.
Through the chair, just a question, I mean, it is zone commercial. Not, the individual has a right to do with what they want with their property, but I guess at the present, it has really no impact on surrounding property because there isn't a lot of commercial either direction, right?
That's correct. Jen has the map up there and the closest commercial is actually immediately adjacent to the right. It's a B&B or a lodge that has rental cabins available for rent.
Oh, okay,
But apart from that, you have to go either back towards town where you would hit the Whistle Hill development or go out towards Sterling where you would hit I think the dental office and forestry would be the first commercial developments you would hit.
it seems interesting that where he would cite, I mean, cites the building in the middle of it, which just means that he's limiting his long-term thing, but that's his choice. But anyway, thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, not hearing any, we'll call for the vote.
Barbaza,
Yes.
Burton,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes,
Topfest,
Yes.
Smithwick Haley,
Yes.
and Anderson and Chair Vadla are absent. So you have a motion passed.
Thank you. Okay, unfinished business, none. New business, none. We'll go to public comments without prior notice. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment? Not seeing anybody in the room. Is there anybody online? Okay. Public comment period is now closed. Informational items, none. We're down to the reports. We have mayor and council reports. Council member Nelson.
Thank you. Good to see everybody again this month. Boy, things have been busy. And so I'm going to start my report, I think, with the hot topic, and I'm going to ask Jeanette to help me with this because I think she's got a little bit more information. So as you may be aware, the borough made an ordinance was introduced to change the composition and process for the planning commission at the borough level. Mr. Ruffner came to our meeting on May the 10th and presented that and answered some questions. There was certainly some concern in the council's discussion at that time. I think it was pretty unanimous as to our concern with the different possibilities of city residents not being represented at the borough level. Of course, there's history of our recommendations there being really for no substantive reason being not approved by the borough mayor. One key fact of this takeaway is that borough mayor appointment process would really stay the same in this 9-member commission. On our following meeting, May the 24th, Vice Mayor Parker introduced a memo directing the city manager to provide some comments. And specifically in those comments, we're recommending a commission of 11 members, consistent with assembly member districts with 2 seats reserved for home rule and first class cities, with city residents serving on a seat still selected by the borough mayor, with the city seats on a rotational basis. So that was approved by council. And last night there was a hearing, which I did not watch. So I wonder, Nick, could you fill us in on any news on that? So that recommendation was forwarded, and that's where I last have my info.
Through the chair. It's my understanding, and was slated to attend, but did not attend. Vice Mayor Parker did attend the meeting, and I understand that also there was a member of the planning commission who attended, who could possibly add to the conversation. But I was notified that a substitute ordinance passed, and it kept designated seats for 4 of the cities over 2,000. So 4 of the cities are designated seats, and still a 9-member commission is what I understood how it passed. I still don't know for sure which portion it was kept regarding the city selection of a person and how that, is going to be handled by the borough mayor. I'm uncertain of that portion of. When I went online, I saw a separate laydown regarding that, so I'm not quite sure which portion is passed. I've been waiting for the clerk's email with the action agenda to verify that information, but I understood that the city seats are designated, which is really good for the cities. And I don't know if anyone else.
I don't know if you have anything more to add to that. I apologize. I didn't really keep track of it last night, but
That sounds
Yeah.
about right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
and I think, again, my opinion here, I think that's a good thing. I'm glad that some of those amendments happen. I do want to point out that Assemblymember Cox and Assembly President Johnson was at our last meeting on the 24th. They spent an awful lot of time getting some bombs lobbed at them and some opinions. And I know that they were both willing to introduce some things and be willing to work with the city. I think that this situation's got some difficulties the way it's written. I do understand from my perspective, from Mr. Ruffner, there are some very good administrative things that are good reasons to do this. But I think with the history, especially with our city and representation, I think a change was certainly a good thing, and other council members certainly agreed with that. So that was, I think, the big topic. Other than that, the budget was probably our other big topic that we took care of here on May 24th. The budget as presented, so we have the 2-year biennium budget that's passed here. So that next 2 fiscal years. And as a reminder, what generally happens is the administration comes with what they call the mid-biennium update. So we adjust things that are out of whack, or salary schedules, those types of things. There were some minor amendments on the floor. I think the biggest action item came through the non-departmental funding for the city. So we had quite a representation from the Soldotna City Council, Soldotna Senior Center, with quite a number of people coming in to express concern over that organization, how it's run, some things on the executive director level, and handling of endowments and funds and things like that. So we heard that. I know that the mayor, we're trying to keep that focused on the budget. The city council can't say how a nonprofit is being run, but I introduced an amendment on the floor to zero out the funding for this fiscal year. And what I explained to the folks in attendance was that even though we don't get into those internal operations of an organization, we have a responsibility to be good stewards of public money. And that much concern and that much going on was a red flag. So again, a 2-year budget, it was zeroed for 1 year, and it's in the budget for the 2nd year. The council can certainly make an adjustment if the body wishes at that time. So the budget was passed, flat mill rate, which I may have mentioned last time. So none of the tax rates obviously changed. We had just a number of administrative things happen, things like changing signers on bank accounts with our new city manager. We did approve changes to the city employee health and benefits plan, which were a very good thing. I think that's going to result in cost savings for the city, cost savings for the employees. So switching providers, doing some of those administrative things. Extending the animal control shelter agreement with the city, the Parks and Rec fee schedule, again, just little minor stuff. It was definitely the budget and the planning commission took the evening, kind of a long evening for our city manager's first meeting. So, but I think that went well. That's, I think, the highlights. We had some committing resolutions. Master swim program did good things. What was the other one? There was another commending resolution in there that I think I've forgotten and didn't write down, but good things. So happy to stand for any questions from the Planning and Zoning Commission. I believe, and I will ask for help from staff to make sure I'm saying this correctly. It was mirroring the assembly districts, but what that ended up for the city was the city district doesn't just encompass the city limits. It also had representation from outside the city limits. And I think that one of the main concerns that was brought up was potentially a representative could be appointed that's not within the city deciding, being a voice in city business. And if I'm understanding the change correctly is now that that position would be appointed from the city limits instead of having that situation. And city manager is nodding at me, so I think I've got that information correct.
Through the chair. That is my understanding. And again, I'm waiting for the final language, to verify. But what I, saw in the substitute ordinance was the designated cities and then, yes, kind of a reincorporation, I guess, so to speak, of the areas to balance out the remaining 5 seats.
Any other questions? Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. The city manager report, City Manager Bauer, welcome.
Thank you. I'm here tonight to really just introduce myself and to thank you for your service. Planning Commission is a heavy lift, and I know that the council counts on you for your work that you do within the as a body and for the community. So it's nice to be here, and thank you for your service.
Thank you and welcome again. We will now move on to the Economic Development and Planning Director, John Cerneski. Hope I pronounced that right.
You got it.
Okay,
Thank you.
getting better.
Just a couple things, a couple updates. One is on our riverfront redevelopment project. Our consultant is now drafting some of the specific design concepts as they were presented and commented on by the public. At the last one, we received feedback, and so they're refining those, and then we're providing our feedback to them so that when they come again in August, you'll have something more substantial to look at and to again provide feedback on. Complete Streets project is rolling forward, and we met with DOT and with the Smart Growth America folks here about, what was it, a week ago, I think, possibly. They were here on site, and we toured the Birch Street intersection and took a look at that, and then finalized our recommendations for a temporary short-term project at that intersection. And so what was forwarded then on to DOT for their final blessing were things like modifying the signalization there so that pedestrians have a little bit longer to cross, trying to draw some attention to the intersection itself by doing some street banners, hanging flowers, and then extending also the crosswalk area. So instead of the typical parallel crosswalk bars, we're proposing, it's called a continental style of bar, which is perpendicular to those and extends out. It would allow us to widen the area that the public has to cross there. Trying to think what else, some signage for, the Sterling Highway that would, let motorists know that pedestrians are in this area and try to call attention to them. The placement of delineators on the medians and along the corners. So again, draw attention to that intersection. And we also hope to get our SPD portable message board out there on Wednesdays and any other day that there's an event in the park that would inform motorists that pedestrians are ahead, please slow down, keep your eyes open. So we're waiting at this point now to hear back from DOT with their blessing, and then we can actually begin to start purchasing materials to install this temporary project. We've got a grant of $10,000 from Smart Growth America. So as soon as we get the word, we're gonna start buying paint, flowers, banners, and any other materials that we need. And then we just have to pick an installation date, get it set up and get it on the ground, and then test it out for about a month is our goal. See how it works. Pardon? Yes, right, sorry. This is a joint effort between the city and the state, and that's the point of the Smart Growth America program, is to encourage coordination and communication between the state and local partners. What else? Lots of things going on in town, as you probably have seen, lots of construction projects, remodels, things occurring. The Tanner fish processing plant is getting close to being completed. The old Magic Moments on the Kenai Spur, it used to be the photography place, is being converted into a dental office. That's getting close. So there's plenty going on there. And I think that's about all I've got, except to say that music in the park is tonight, first night. So sun's still shining. Hope you guys all get there and enjoy some of it.
Charlie and I are.
Thank you, John. And we will go to Associate Planner Jen.
Thank you. So speaking of music in the park, there is outreach right now for the Arts and Culture Master Plan or planning document that's occurring. And so there is a booth. If you do happen to go to Music in the Park tonight, please stop by our booth. I know Charlene, you were there already today. So thank you. It gives feedback to some of the design concept, or not design concept, some of the concepts that our consultants have laid out. And on one side, there's an interactive map. We're hoping to gain more feedback of arts and culture that already exists in the area. And that should be ready, that plan draft by the end of the month, and they'll present to council the month after. I didn't know if there was interest from this body in having a presentation from our consultants. So that was something we had discussed. So let me know if you want them to present to you. And then as a requirement, I have to let you know about the notice of violations that John and I have been working on. So specifically, we have short-term rentals. This was a process that started permitting about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago now, almost 2.5 years ago. And so it's a relatively new permit process. So it's to get the Airbnbs and the VRBOs that are in the residential district to come into compliance with having a short-term rental permit. And we're finally at this stage where we're really kind of cracking down on things and done a lot of research. And so we sent out 10 notice of violations about a month ago, and we have 8 now in compliance. So without having to hit them with a stick of fineage, and we're just on our final 2 to try and get them into compliance. And then we have 2 other violations that we've been working on is with, abandoned vehicles and debris in the yard. And one of those has come into compliance. And so we're still working on another. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Any questions, commissioners, for Jen or John? Okay. Not hearing any, we'll go to the commission comments. It says pick a commissioner to start and go down the line. So Murray.
I hadn't been over to the parking lot behind the gas station. And it's a large area, but there's not a lot of, there's a lot of pavement. and there isn't a lot of assigned parking spaces. Is that something at all in the long-term planning? I know that, I think the last time we talked about some of the problems with parking was that that's where all the vendors park for when there's a big event. So is it both for the public and the vendors, or is it just for the vendors when there's a big event?
So if you're talking about the old Davis Block property down the
Yep,
hill.
yep.
I believe the last I heard is that actually vendors were being encouraged to park at a different location and that lot was to be used for the public. The vendors were being encouraged to park over behind what is now North Country Fair. It used to be the Key Bank. There's a lot owned by the Stenger brothers back there that the vendors were being encouraged to park. Typically, parks will actually set up some lines and some chalk marks or some delineators to encourage parking in a somewhat organized
Orderly
manner. So to get as many vehicles as possible down there. I'm not sure if that's been done at this point yet this year, but that's what usually happens.
Okay, but there isn't really a plan to do any sort of major improvement to, you know, maximize the use, because right now people kind of just park where they choose to, whatever's available. At least that was my experience when I was down there.
The, you know, that parcel is part of our riverfront redevelopment planning area and is included in there. And so that parcel is being looked at as for a number of different opportunities. So at this point, there isn't any plan to do one thing or another, whether it's a paved parking lot, a public market, or a visitor center. Those, you know, we're not there yet, but we're looking at that seriously, and hopefully we'll have some recommendations by the end of the year.
And I saw a lot of activity in front of Aspen. So when's that one supposed to be done?
That'll be done end of this month.
That'll be good. Thank you.
Thank you. Burton?
I just want to get a little clarification on some old business, the commercial core proposal that we put forth to the council. My understanding is we put a pin in it for the time being. In that meeting, I think there were some thoughts to change some of the wording. And so my question is, the process, is it going to come back to us where we need to reword anything as per your recommendations, or are we just waiting to approve of it as is? So are we going to get it back, or is it going to just sit with you guys until it's time?
Would you mind, please?
Yeah, I can. So as you know, the planning commission worked on that for some time and developed a recommendation and was placed in the form of a resolution, which was approved, sent to the city council, which considered it during a work session essentially. And having the riverfront redevelopment plan ongoing, the thought was to, like you said, put a pin in it, wait until that process is over and see if there's any additional amendments that would need to be made to encourage and to encourage the plan and the outcomes that the plan is promoting. So I do anticipate that it will come back to the planning commission in some form, because I think there will be recommendations there that we hadn't necessarily conditioned, maybe, or considered, and that there may be additional uses that we hadn't thought about, or that there may be some uses that we included that maybe you want to pull out. So it would be coming back to this body.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Smith McGailey?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like time is of the essence on that one, with those huge chunks of property already being listed for sale right now, but it's completely out of our hands. Is that what you're saying? It's on the council now?
Right. It's right. It's through you. You've provided it to the council. The council, at this point can essentially choose what they want to do with it. And like I say, I think the general feeling was, let's let this process play out, because this process involves a lot of work with landowners in that project area who would be affected by this proposed zoning change. And the thought is, let's get through that process and keep our relationships where they are, and make sure that we settle on the plan. And then if we settle on the plan, then we can settle on the specific zoning tool to implement the plan. But we didn't want to get the zoning out in front of the plan at this point, considering there's so much going on.
Okay. Barbaza?
Welcome.
Okay, and I would like to say welcome to Soldotna and thank you for being here. And thank you, Dan, for coming. And I would absolutely like to see a presentation on arts. Thank you. All right, we are now adjourned. We don't do a motion to adjourn, right? Okay, we're adjourned. The next regular meeting of the Soldotna Planning and Zoning Commission will be held on July 5th, 2023, 5:30 in person in the City Council chambers. Thank you. We're adjourned.